Rain drizzled softly over the bustling streets of Nairobi, washing the dust from the cracked pavements and blurring the city's neon lights. Amidst the crowd, a girl sat huddled beneath an abandoned billboard, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, her torn shawl doing little to fight the cold. Her name was Amina. Barefoot, hungry, and invisible to the world, she watched people rush past her with eyes that had long stopped expecting kindness. But that night, something changed. A sleek black car stopped near her corner, the kind she'd only seen in magazines left in trash bins. The tinted window rolled down, and a man's voice, deep, composed, and strangely gentle, asked, "Are you hungry?" She looked up, startled. The man's face was unfamiliar, yet carried an aura of power. His eyes were sharp, calculating, but not unkind. His name was Malik Alam, a billionaire whose name dominated the financial headlines and whispered rumors alike. He was the type of man who owned everything. Yet somehow, he looked like someone searching for something that money couldn't buy. He stepped out of the car, extending a wrapped meal toward her. "Eat," he said simply. She hesitated but accepted, her trembling hands betraying her hunger. As she devoured the food, he watched her quietly, as though studying her every movement, every emotion. When she finally looked up, he said something that made her choke on her last bite. "I have a proposal for you." Amina froze. Proposals from rich men rarely meant anything good. But his tone wasn't predatory. It was clinical, deliberate. "I need someone to have my child," he continued. "You will be well taken care of. In return, you'll disappear afterward, with enough money to never live on the streets again." For a moment, she thought he was joking, but the calm seriousness in his eyes told her otherwise. "I don't understand," she whispered. "You don't have to," Malik replied. "Just know that it's complicated. I can't have this child with anyone from my world." That night, Amina walked away, but his offer haunted her every step. Hunger could be ignored. Cold could be endured. But the chance to change her destiny? That was harder to silence. Days passed, and when Malik returned to the same corner a week later, she was waiting. The contract was signed. Her life, once aimless, now had a strange, terrifying purpose. She was taken to one of Malik's private estates outside the city, where doctors and caretakers attended to her every need. She ate well, slept on silk sheets, but her soul remained restless. Malik visited occasionally, always distant, never unkind, but emotionally unreachable. Months passed, and Amina began to sense that there was something deeper behind his offer, something unspoken. She caught glimpses of old photographs in his study, a woman's smile frozen in time, and a small crib covered with dust. Malik never spoke of it, but Amina understood. Grief was his shadow. When the baby came, it was a stormy night. The cries of the newborn echoed through the mansion like a haunting melody. Malik arrived moments later, his usually cold demeanor cracking for the first time as he held the child. A little boy with Amina's eyes and his own quiet intensity. "You've done more than you know," he told her softly. "You've given me a reason to live again." But then, just as quickly, his walls returned. Papers were drawn up, the financial transfer completed. Amina was to leave the next morning. Her role was finished. Yet when dawn broke, something unexpected happened. Malik came to her room, his usually perfect composure gone. The baby, barely a day old, had fallen ill, a condition no doctor could explain. His breathing was shallow, his cries weak. Panic filled the house. Amina rushed to the nursery, her instincts overpowering everything else. The moment she took the baby into her arms, his tiny chest steadied. His cries faded into calm coos. The doctors exchanged bewildered looks. Malik stood frozen, disbelief flickering in his eyes. "It's as if he knows her," one of the doctors murmured. Malik watched as Amina rocked the child gently, humming a lullaby from the streets, a melody that somehow filled the grand room with warmth money could never buy. For the first time, Malik realized something terrifying. This wasn't just a transaction anymore. This woman, this fragile, forgotten soul, was now tied to him in a way that no contract could sever. He looked at her differently then, not as a vessel for his heir, but as someone fate had deliberately placed in his path. That night, as Amina sat by the crib, Malik stood by the doorway, silently watching the scene that shouldn't have felt so right. He had spent his life building empires, buying loyalty, and controlling destiny. Yet here, In this quiet moment, destiny had taken control of him. But what neither of them knew was that the true reason Malik had chosen her was still hidden, a truth buried in a secret that could destroy everything they had just begun to feel. And when Amina found out the real reason he had chosen her, everything would change forever. The night after the scandal broke, Malik's mansion was no longer the fortress of calm it had once been. Paparazzi lights flashed through the iron gates like lightning, and the world outside buzzed with fury and fascination. Every news anchor, every gossip blogger, every social feed had the same headline, painting Malik as a heartless billionaire who had bought a poor woman's womb. Inside, Amina stood by the window, holding a mirror close to her chest. His tiny breaths calmed her even as her heart thundered with fear. The same city that once ignored her now whispered her name with venom. She had been invisible all her life, and yet now she was the center of a storm she never asked for. Malik entered quietly, the weight of the chaos visible in his eyes. His usually perfect posture was gone, his tie loosened, his face shadowed with exhaustion. "We're leaving the city tonight," he said, his voice low but urgent. "Somewhere safe. I'll fix this, Amina. I promise." But she shook her head. "You can't fix what the world already believes. They'll never see me as anything more than what they want to see, a desperate woman who took your money." "I'll make them see the truth," he insisted. "I'll tell them everything." She looked at him, her eyes shimmering. "And what is the truth, Malik? That you paid me? That I agreed? Or that somewhere between our pain, something real began to grow?" His lips parted, but no words came. Because she was right, the truth wasn't simple. What had started as a cold transaction had turned into something neither of them expected. Love wasn't part of the deal, yet it had quietly crept into every stolen glance, every shared silence, every moment with a mirror between them. Still, the world didn't care for love stories born from scandal. Before Malik could respond, his assistant burst through the door, panic written all over his face. "Sir, someone's leaked medical files. They're saying the baby isn't genetically yours." Malik's body stiffened. "What did you say?" "They have documents. Lab results. Anonymous source." Amina's arms tightened around Amir as Malik's world began to tilt. He had overseen every step of the process, the DNA, the embryo, the transfer. There was no mistake, unless someone had made one intentionally. Within hours, news channels screamed with new headlines. Asterisk, the billionaire's baby not his own, scandal deepens. Asterisk, Malik's empire began to tremble under the weight of doubt. Investors pulled back, partners distanced themselves, and enemies smiled from the shadows. That night, he called the clinic director, demanding answers. The truth that came back hit harder than betrayal. Someone had switched the samples. The child, Amir, was not biologically Malik's, but the name behind it was what truly froze his blood. Dr. Kweku, the same fertility expert who had handled his late wife Layla's pregnancy. The man Malik had once trusted more than anyone. A flood of realization crashed over him. Layla's death, the failed birth, the missing records, it all connected. Malik had buried his grief so deep, he'd never seen the pattern forming beneath it. Kweku had lost everything after Layla's death, blamed Malik for cutting funding to his clinic. This wasn't just revenge, it was precision. Malik's voice trembled with quiet rage. He wanted to destroy me. But why Amina? The answer came the next morning. A letter arrived at the mansion, unmarked, hand-delivered. Amina opened it and froze. It was written in a trembling hand, addressed to her. Asterisk, you don't remember me, but I remember you. I delivered you when you were born in a village outside Garissa. Your mother was dying, and I promised to keep you alive. The truth is, Malik's wife, Layla, was your half-sister. You share the same father. Asterisk. The paper fell from her hand. The room spun. When Malik read it, silence filled the air, so heavy it was almost suffocating. Layla your sister? He whispered. Amina could barely speak. I never knew. My mother never told me. That meant Amir, though not Malik's biological son, carried the same bloodline. Fate had found its cruel symmetry. Malik sank into a chair, running a hand through his hair. His empire, his legacy, his grief, everything he'd built was being rewritten in a single heartbeat. And yet, as he looked at Amina, her trembling form, her teary eyes, he realized something he'd been too blind to see. Blood didn't define family. Love did. In the days that followed, Malik refused to hide anymore. He called for a press conference, something his advisors begged him not to do. But this time, he wasn't the billionaire shielding himself behind PR statements and power. He was a man ready to face the truth. Before the flashing cameras and curious faces, he told the story, the real one. About the car crash. About the woman who saved him. About the deal that began as business and became something sacred. He confessed to his grief, his mistakes, and the darkness that had driven him. She was never for sale, he said, his voice steady. She was the one who reminded me what humanity feels like. You can call it scandal. I call it redemption. The world listened. For once, silence followed. But the real redemption didn't come from headlines. It came from what happened after. Amina, no longer the invisible girl, began to work with shelters across the city, helping women who had been forgotten like she once was. Cameras followed her at first, but soon they grew tired of her quiet grace, her lack of drama. She didn't want fame. She wanted to give others a chance to survive. Malik rebuilt not just his business, but his purpose. He reopened Layla's Foundation for Children's Health in her memory, with Amina as co-director. The world that had once judged them slowly began to respect them. But the past wasn't done testing them yet. One evening, months later, as the sun melted into gold across the horizon, Amina received a call. It was from a hospital in Mombasa. Dr. Kweku had been found gravely ill, dying from complications of the same experimental drug he had been developing when his clinic was shut down. Malik hesitated, but Amina insisted they go. When they arrived, Kweku looked frail, almost unrecognizable. His eyes flickered with something between guilt and relief when he saw them. "You came," he rasped. "I didn't think you would." "Why?" Malik asked quietly. "Why ruin so many lives?" Kweku's lips trembled. "Because you took everything from me. But I realized too late, revenge doesn't heal anything. The boy, Amir, I never meant for him to suffer. I only wanted you to feel what I felt when I lost everything." He turned to Amina. "You were meant to be the message. The child I delivered all those years ago would become the woman who taught him compassion again. I thought I was punishing him, but fate had other plans." Tears welled in her eyes. Even in his brokenness, the old man had seen what they could not. The hand of destiny weaving pain into purpose. He died that night, his confession recorded, clearing their names forever. Months passed. The scandal faded, replaced by stories of rebirth and reconciliation. Malik and Amina raised Amir together, not as a symbol of shame, but as a living testament that life could bloom even from the deepest wounds. Their bond grew, not rushed, not demanded, but nurtured through trust and forgiveness. Malik began to smile again, not the polite smile of a businessman, but the kind that reached the eyes. Amina, once a nameless face on the streets, became the soul of a new beginning. On the anniversary of Layla's death, Malik stood with Amina at the Foundation's new children's hospital. A plaque at the entrance read, *, for every child born into hardship, may they find light, as we did. *. A crowd had gathered, doctors, journalists, children laughing in the courtyard. Malik turned to Amina, his voice soft but sure. "You changed my life, Amina. You gave it meaning again." She smiled, tears glimmering. "We saved each other, Malik." And as Amir ran between them, his laughter echoing through the courtyard, it felt as though the world itself had exhaled. The billionaire who once believed he could buy control had learned that love cannot be bought or measured. The homeless girl who once had nothing had given him everything that mattered. Their story had begun with a contract signed in loneliness and pain, but it ended with something far more powerful. Not wealth, not redemption, but the quiet miracle of two broken souls finding home in each other, and the child who would carry their legacy of love beyond everything the world once said they could never be. Days blurred into one another after the baby's birth, but something had shifted inside the mansion. The air no longer carried only silence and tension. It now held the soft rhythm of lullabies and the faint, unfamiliar warmth of laughter. Malik found himself wandering the corridors at night, drawn toward the nursery without understanding why. He told himself it was to check on his son's health, but deep down, he knew it wasn't just that. He would stand by the door, watching Amina cradle the child with a tenderness that made him ache. Her voice, soft, raw, untrained, had become a kind of magic in his house, something no symphony or luxury could replicate. The baby, whom he'd named Amir, only seemed to thrive when she was near. Whenever she left the room, his tiny fists would flail, his face scrunching into desperate cries. The moment she returned, he'd quiet again, soothed by her presence as though she carried a part of his soul. The doctors had no medical explanation. "It's maternal imprinting," one said nervously. "He knows her scent, her heartbeat. It's biological." Malik dismissed the man but couldn't dismiss the truth behind his words. Amir was connected to Amina, so deeply that even the billionaire's money couldn't replace that bond. One evening, as rain drummed against the glass walls, Malik found himself sitting across from Amina in the lounge. She was rocking Amir, her shawl slipping from one shoulder. The fire cast flickering shadows over her face, illuminating the quiet strength in her eyes. "You sing to him often," Malik said, breaking the silence. Amina smiled faintly without looking up. "It's what my mother used to do. Even when we had nothing, she said songs keep the soul alive." Her words struck him deeper than he expected. "And where is your mother now?" "She died," Amina replied simply. "Fever. We couldn't afford the hospital. After that, the streets became home." Malik's jaw tightened. He wanted to say something, an apology, perhaps, but nothing felt adequate. He, who could buy an entire hospital with a single signature, couldn't undo the cruelty that poverty had etched into her life. After a long silence, she looked at him, her gaze calm but searching. "Why did you choose me, Malik? Out of all the women in your world, why me?" His throat tightened. For months, he had prepared an answer, a polished explanation about anonymity, safety, discretion. But the truth was Messier. The truth was that he'd seen her once, long before that night under the billboard. "You won't believe me," he murmured. "Try me." He inhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the flames. "A year ago, I was in a car accident on the Old Market Road. My car had swerved off course. I was bleeding, barely conscious. It was raining that night, too. People stood around, taking pictures instead of helping. And then you appeared." Amina frowned, her brows knitting in confusion. "You pulled me out of the wreck," he continued, his voice low. "You stayed until the ambulance came. You didn't even wait for a thank you. Just disappeared." Her eyes widened. "That was you." He nodded. "I remembered your face, but when I tried to find you later, no one knew who you were. It haunted me. When I saw you again on that street corner, it felt like fate had given me another chance." Amina sat in stunned silence, the firelight dancing across her face. "So that's why you chose me?" "Partly," he admitted. "But also because I trusted you in a way I can't explain. You didn't want anything from me that night. You saved me because it was the right thing to do. In my world, no one does anything without a reason." Amina looked down at Amir, sleeping peacefully in her arms. "And yet, you turned my life into a contract." Her words cut deeper than she intended, and Malik's expression darkened. "You're right," he said quietly. "I did. Because I didn't know how else to keep control." Control. That was the word that defined his existence. Every deal, every empire, every relationship. He managed them like pieces on a chessboard. But Amina had never followed the rules of his game. She'd simply lived, breathed, and loved with a purity that defied his logic. The baby stirred, breaking the heavy silence. Amina rose and carried Amir back to his crib, humming softly. Malik watched her go, a strange mixture of admiration and fear curling in his chest. Later that night, he poured himself a glass of whiskey and walked into his study. The room smelled of leather and old wood, filled with awards, documents, and a single photograph that had never left his desk, a woman with kind eyes and a radiant smile. His late wife, Layla. He traced the edge of the frame with his thumb. "You'd hate what I've done," he whispered. She had died 3 years ago, during childbirth. The baby hadn't survived either. He had lost them both in one night, and the grief had hollowed him. He'd vowed never to love again, never to let emotion dictate his life. The surrogacy plan had been his way to reclaim control, to have a child without facing the chaos of love or attachment. But Amina had shattered that plan effortlessly. For the first time in years, he felt his world spinning beyond his grasp. The next morning, the mansion buzzed with quiet activity. The staff moved with purpose, the smell of breakfast drifting through the halls. Amina sat on the balcony, sunlight touching her face, Amir asleep beside her. She looked peaceful, almost regal, so unlike the girl he'd found on the streets. Malik approached, his usual stoic expression replaced by something softer. "You look different," he said. She smiled faintly. "Maybe because, for the first time, I feel safe." He wanted to tell her that she was. That no harm would ever reach her under his roof. But before he could, his phone buzzed. His assistant's voice was urgent. "Sir, there's a situation. Someone leaked the surrogacy contract. The media has it." Malik's blood ran cold. "What?" "They're saying you paid a homeless woman to bear your child. It's spreading fast. Social media, news outlets, everywhere." Amina looked up, confused by the sudden tension in his face. "What's wrong?" He pocketed the phone, his jaw tightening. "Nothing you need to worry about." But she saw the storm brewing behind his eyes. By afternoon, reporters had swarmed the gates. Cameras flashed, questions flew. "Is it true? Did you buy a child? Who was the woman?" Amina's world, which had just begun to find peace, shattered again. Malik ordered guards to keep her hidden, but whispers traveled fast. Servants stared differently now. The house that once felt safe had become a gilded cage. That night, she confronted him. "Tell me the truth," she demanded, her voice trembling. "What's happening out there?" Malik exhaled slowly, then handed her his tablet. The headlines glared back at her. Her face, the baby's photo, his name. Asterisk, billionaire buys child from street woman. Secret surrogacy exposed. Asterisk. Her knees went weak. "They think I sold him." Malik stepped closer. "I'll fix it. I'll protect you and Amir." "How?" she snapped. "By hiding me again. By pretending I don't exist." He reached out, but she stepped back, tears filling her eyes. "I didn't do this for money, Malik. I did it because you promised I could start over. But now the whole world knows my name for the wrong reason." He didn't answer. His silence said everything. As she turned away, the baby's cry echoed from the other room, soft but desperate. Malik's chest tightened. He had faced ruthless businessmen, courtroom battles, and billion-dollar risks without fear. But this was the first time he felt powerless. And what neither of them knew was that someone inside his company had orchestrated the leak, not for profit, but revenge. Someone who knew about Layla's death. Someone who knew Amina's past held a secret even she didn't remember. Because the child, little Amir, wasn't just Malik's heir. He was the key to a truth buried deep enough to destroy them both.